Welcome to the Edge of Sports podcast. I'm Dave Zirin. This week we speak to retired NFL punter Chris Kluwe. Now, you may remember Chris Kluwe as a player with the Minnesota Vikings, of course, from 2005 to 2012, when he was at the time one of the few pro athletes, not just football players, willing to go out on a limb and stand up for the marginalized, the bullied, and all who face systemic oppression. Perhaps then it shouldn't surprise us at all then that Chris Kluwe made national news this week when he showed up at a Huntington Beach, California City Council meeting, and this is what he said.
Hi, my name's Chris Kluwe, 15-year HB resident. I'm here to speak out against both the plaque and the current city council. As the community made clear at the Library Commission meeting last Tuesday, everyone is in favor of a plaque to celebrate the library, but the vast majority are against including a MAGA acrostic. Okay. Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence. MAGA stands for resegregation and racism. MAGA stands for censorship and book bans. MAGA stands for firing air traffic controllers while planes are crashing. MAGA stands for firing the people overseeing our nuclear arsenal. MAGA stands for firing military veterans and those serving them at the VA, including canceling research on veteran suicide. MAGA stands for cutting funds to education, including for disabled children. MAGA is profoundly corrupt, unmistakably anti-democracy, and most importantly, MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement. You may have replaced a swastika with a red hat, but that is what it is.
Chris Kluwe followed that by performing an act of civil disobedience, walking to the council, then going limp and being arrested and carried out to the cheers of onlookers. And we are so thrilled to have him here on the Edge of Sports podcast. We really want to find out what went into that decision and what he thinks about the ways that it seems to have inspired people, probably well beyond his thoughts and aspirations when he took the floor that night. So glad to talk to him right now. Chris Kluwe. Chris, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm thrilled, man. So first and foremost, let's set the scene if we could. What brought you to that city council meeting?
Yeah, so the Huntington Beach City Council has been messing with the library for at least like 2 years, 2.5 years now. And it originally started with a book ban. They wanted to ban a bunch of books from the children's section, primarily LGBTQ books. And so that's like, I was speaking out at that point because I'm like, hey, this is not okay. Like this is a First Amendment violation. And then it proceeded from there to where they got huge community pushback. So like, okay, well, we're going to establish like a 23-person panel that will review all the books in the library and determine where they go. And the bad books will go in the special like adults only section. It's just like, but that's just a book ban. Like, right. That's the exact same thing. So there was huge community pushback on that because they actually established the panel. And so in response, a group called Protect HB, they've been fighting to, keep them from fucking with the library. They're like, we're going to start a petition to where you're going to have to dissolve this panel because they're like, we think there's enough residents in this city that don't like what you're doing. And yeah, sure enough, they got more than enough signatures. And that was actually one of the things also on the agenda for that meeting. I didn't get to see it because I was in jail at that point, but yeah. So anyway, the panel was established. Then the next thing they tried to do was privatize the library because they're like, hey, we don't like the way the library is run because it's free and open and like actually treating people with dignity. We want to sell it off and scrap it for parts. And so again, huge pushback. Another petition that was also on the agenda this week. And so finally we get to the MAGA plaque, which is just like,
say those words again. The MAGA plaque, did you say?
Yeah. Yeah, the MAGA plaque. So there was Protect HB sent out this email saying, hey, there's a library commission meeting where they've come up with a plaque to honor the 50th anniversary of the library. It's like, great, we should honor our library. It's a fantastic library. It's a crown jewel of Huntington Beach. Like people come from cities all around to go to this library. But the plaque that they had proposed was this hideous like black and gold monstrosity. I'm sure coincidentally in Proud Boy colors. Like I'm sure that was just a happy little accident. And it had an acronym or an acrostic in the middle of the plaque, like fully displayed, that spelled out MAGA going down. And then I think it was like magical, alluring, galvanizing, and adventurous were the actual words. Which I don't know about you, but when I think of a library, alluring is not the first word I want to associate with it.
Yeah.
That gives me some skeevy vibes.
Totally. Maybe for the adult section.
Right? Yeah, you gotta take your books out in a brown paper bag. So, so anyway, so this library commission meeting, like, I was there for that one too. Over 90% of the people speaking were, and I mean, there was at least like 30 or 40 people speaking, which is for a library commission meeting, like that's a big turnout. Like, and over 90% of the people speaking were like, yeah, no, don't do this. This is terrible. Like, this is really bad. And the library commission rubber stamped it. They sent it to the council, and like not even any debate around it or anything. They're just like, yeah, no, we approve the plaque. And so the council meeting this week was about like actually adopting the plaque for the library. And at that point, based on my previous interactions with this city council, like it becomes super clear they do not care about the community. They don't care what the community actually wants. They're only in office to try to get more power and to try to rise higher into Trump's orbit. And it's illustrated really clearly by our previous city attorney who just left us, Michael Gates. He has wasted hundreds of thousands of our taxpayer dollars trying to defend frivolous lawsuits, keeping the city from building housing that's required by the state of California. Like there's no way these suits are going to win in court. Like absolutely no way. But he keeps fighting them because he knows Trump likes that kind of thing. And sure enough, now he's in Trump's administration. And then the council gave him a rousing send-off. Like he's doing great work. So yeah, this is what they all want. They want to springboard from their position to higher up in the Trump administration. And it's just a naked grab for power. Like they really don't care about the community. And so when I saw, the plaque issue, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, please, you finish, please.
Yeah. So when I saw that the plaque was, going to be on the agenda for this week, I was like, okay, well, I guess like it's time to actually like do something, because they're not going to listen. They've shown they're not going to listen. People know they're not going to listen, and there's this sense of resigned frustration when people talk and give public comment, and that they're angry because they want to make their voices heard, but they know at the end of the day that the council isn't even going to debate the issue. Like they're not even going to bring up the fact that so many people are speaking out against it. They're just gonna be like, nope, we do what we want. Fuck you. And so that was when I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to make them listen this time. And then yeah, so I came up with with my speech, which I posted the full 3-minute one online, because normally you're supposed to get 3 minutes for public comment. Our current mayor, Mr. Burns, no relation to the Simpsons character, he chopped it down to 1 minute at the start of session, which again made it clear they really weren't interested in listening to the community. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll cut out certain parts to make it fit. But at the end, I knew, okay, I'm gonna go protest. Like I'm gonna go up on the dais and force them to arrest me, because this is not okay. Like it's someone has to take a stand at some point, and if our elected officials aren't going to do it, I guess I got to do it.
Mm-hmm. Did you go there though knowing that you were going to do civil disobedience, or was it something that more came to you when they limited the speaker's time and you said, well, I guess that's my only option? Did you go in with that plan?
So I went in about 70-30 in favor of it. I was like, okay, maybe I won't do this. Like, we'll see how it goes. But when I walked in and saw the way that the room was laid out, like I don't know if you can really see it on the video, but the way it's laid out, it's very clearly meant to form a barrier from anyone getting out from behind the podium and approaching the dais. Whereas before, the podiums used to be on the left side of the room, and there was none of the restraining barriers there. Like it was just, you walked up to behind the podium and then you left, and the next person walked up and the next person left. So the atmosphere of the council chamber has become more hostile, just in terms of how they've arranged it. And so when I saw that there would be only 1 minute for comment, and then when Mayor Burns said, and we're going to make sure you keep it under control, like we will be we'll be enforcing the full amount of the law. I was just like, well, that just decided it.
Oh my God. I'm surprised he didn't go, excellent.
Yeah, right. He's more of a, I think he's a former cop, and he's very much I don't want to say too much, but yeah, when you look at him and the way he's the one who was jumping up in the Hawaiian shirt and yelling, get him.
Oh my God. All right, so that's a great jumping off point to this. I mean, not all our listeners are going to know the name Huntington Beach, California. They might think, oh, is that like Venice Beach or something like that? But Huntington Beach is a different kind of a place. And I'm hoping perhaps you can speak about Huntington Beach and how it's become such soil for this kind of fascistic MAGA mentality.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is, Huntington Beach has a long history of associating with white supremacy. I grew up in the area. I grew up in Seal Beach, which is about like 3 or 4 miles up the road. And back even when I was a kid, you knew about the skinheads and the surf Nazis from Huntington Beach. And a lot of them got pushed out from like Anaheim when Disney started sort of gentrifying the area, and they got pushed down into Huntington Beach. And so this city, like if you ask anyone who knows the history of the area, they'll tell you, oh yeah, this has always been a part of Huntington Beach. Like this is what like the seedy side of Huntington Beach, which is a shame because it's a really nice community. Like, and a lot of it is built on tourism. Like they want people to come to Huntington Beach. Like the U.S. Open, the surf competition is held here every year. And then we actually lost the Summer Olympics because of our city council. Like the surf competition for the Olympics was supposed to take place in Huntington Beach, but because of our city council, they took it away. And I mean, if the Olympics is taking away because they think you're bad news, I don't know what to tell you, because those are some corrupt people.
Yeah. They looked at Huntington Beach and said, yeah, this isn't going to work.
Right. Yeah. They're like, no, can't do that. So anyway, so getting back to Huntington Beach. So this has been an issue in Huntington Beach. We've been trying to make strides to fix that issue, and it's always been a very solidly conservative city, but conservative in like a small C. You know, we don't want to pay as many taxes. We don't want to build houses in our backyard. Like it's not the frothing hate of the MAGA movement where like, get rid of the trans people, get rid of the immigrants. We can't have any sort of LGBTQ literature like that MAGA represents. And so the discouraging part and the frightening part is that's what Huntington Beach has become over the last like 4 years or so. I think pretty much during COVID and then after, like people just lost their minds. And so now Huntington Beach is a stronghold, and it's become known as a stronghold for people who believe in MAGA and want that to be a thing. They're starting to move here, and they're a vocal minority. The problem is the rest of the city, I don't think, has quite caught on yet that when you vote Republican in Huntington Beach, you're not voting small c conservative, you're voting MAGA. Because there are, like Huntington Beach, like I said, is a great community. Like there are a lot of really cool people here, but they see the R on the voting slip and they go, oh, well, yeah, obviously I'm going to vote Republican. I've always voted Republican. And they need to be aware that this is what our city council is doing. Like they're not here to serve you. They don't have your best interests in mind.
So you go to the city council meeting, as people heard earlier in the show, you said words to their faces that I think so many of us have been thinking. And then the civil disobedience being carried out. At the same time, though, were you surprised, even with your public platform that you've held for quite a few years at this point, were you surprised that this clip has gone so viral? And why do you think people have responded to it the way that they have?
Yeah, so I was definitely not expecting it to, like, it's actually very similar to when I was speaking out on LGBTQ rights and I wrote the they won't magically turn you into lustful cock monsters letter, and that, like, I expected it to get some attention. I didn't think it was going to be national attention, right? Like this was the same thing. I expected it was going to get attention, probably make the local news. I wasn't expecting it to blow up like across the country and across the continent. Like I've had messages from people from Canada, from Mexico, like from overseas, in England and Spain, and it's just like, apparently I struck a nerve, and I think that's something that our elected officials should be aware of, is that there is an undercurrent of real anger right now that you need to do something to stop this fascist from taking over our country, because that's your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's go to that. You talked about elected officials. I saw on your Blue Sky feed your frustration that House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries was on a book tour, and people were protesting outside the bookstore, being like, in Chicago, saying, come on, do something. Why are you here on a book tour? And this idea that I think people have seen this contrast, like, why does Chris Kluwe do this, but Hakeem Jeffries is telling people to just pray and he's on a book tour? I have my own theories about their timidity right now, but Why do you think they've been so timid in the face of what has just been this relentless onslaught?
So before I get into that, I think it's also really important to point out that I mentioned Hakeem Jeffries because he's the one currently on the book tour, but I'm talking about all our Democratic elected officials. I'm talking about Adam Schiff, one of my senators. I'm talking about Alex Padilla, one of my senators. I'm talking about Dave Min, my House of Representatives rep. I'm talking about everyone in the Democratic Party, particularly those people who look like me, who have the privilege to get arrested and not be treated as poorly as other people will. Because I definitely got people saying, like, on Blue Sky, where it's just like, oh, you're picking on the black dude. I'm like, no, I'm picking on the elected official who was currently in the news. Like, I'll say this shit to any of them. And I expect better from the people who look like me because they do have the privilege and power to protest. And so, getting back to the original point, I think they're so timid because they're more worried about running for the midterms or re-election, and they're more concerned about keeping what they think are the norms, that they don't understand that we have moved past the time for words and norms. Like we no longer live in that world. That world was 2020 to 2024. And your chance to continue that world was to put Donald Trump in prison because he is a traitor to the country. Because you didn't do that, now we have to escalate because Donald Trump is back in power and he's not going to stop. He thinks he has a mandate and he thinks he can be a king. And let me just say, as an American citizen, regardless of your political affiliation, to see a picture of a president with a crown on his head should drive you into a manic rage because America was founded on no kings, no tyrants, not now, not ever. That is who we are as a country. And if we allow him to do that, we are no longer America. He might call us America, like he wants to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, but we are not America.
Mm. I appreciate that you're doing this interview right now because I saw that you wrote that the New York Times wanted to talk to you and you told them to kick rocks other than Mel Bowie. Now, more proud to know you I could not have been when I saw that note because of my own issues with how the Times has covered the Trump presidency. But I wanted you to say in your own words about like why not talk to the New York Times right now, or why publicly say in protest, I am not talking to the New York Times right now.
Right. So the reason why I publicly put that out there is because the New York Times has a history of this. Back in the 1930s, they were apologists for Hitler, and they said, no, he doesn't mean it. This is not what's going to happen. And that's exactly what they did with Donald Trump. And now it's too late, New York Times. You had your chance to speak truth to power, and you failed your job. And I do not trust anyone at that paper in management and editorial, and they're the ones who make the decisions. I do not trust them to put out a message that I think conveys the seriousness of the situation. And that's why I said the only person I would talk to was Jamel, because I think he does understand the seriousness of the situation and is willing to fight and say so publicly.
Even beyond football, I'm seeing so much more fear now in current or former pro athletes in speaking out compared to, say, 2016, when top athletes regularly took on Trump, refused to go to the White House, all kinds of things. And I think that it's a very, very different mood in the sports world right now. Why do you think, and of course, that mirrors, I think, the mood in America. I don't want to separate athletes from a broader mood. But as you said, like now you have a huge section of America whose hair is on fire saying, what the hell is going on here? Why do you think we've seen this change over the last 8 years in sports in particular? And how do we get beyond that fear?
Right. So I think in sports and the NFL in particular, I think the reason is a lot of these guys, because you got to remember the NFL is a young man's league, right? Like most guys are only in there for like 3.5 years. So there's a constant rate of turnover. It's constantly younger guys coming in. And I think a lot of the guys who grew up watching Colin Kaepernick get punished for protesting are now the guys who are playing in the league. And they saw what happened to Kaepernick. And they're like, if I say something, unless I literally am like a Patrick Mahomes or a Travis Kelce, who, by the way, fuck you for not talking out, they're gonna get fired. Like they're going to get fired by the owners because the owners are Trump supporters. The NFL is in the business of making money, and they think Donald Trump will make them money. I don't know why they think that, because Donald Trump has never made money in his life. He's gotten a lot of bankruptcies, but he's never made money. He's swindled a lot of banks, but he's never made money. And so until the ownership changes, until at the management level that changes, then you're not going to see players speaking up because they don't feel it's safe to speak up because they know they're going to get punished. That being said, I would hope that those players, much in the same way that I have the privilege of who I am as a white man, I would hope that those players who have that same privilege and have that wealth feel the urgency to speak out against what's happening in our country, because we're going down a really, really dark path. Like this is not hyperbole. We are following almost literally beat for beat the path that Nazi Germany went down between when Hitler was elected and when he overthrew the government and declared himself a dictator.
Mm. Now, yeah, I could not agree with that analysis more. Then if people are angry right now and starting to feel like they need to do something, and of course, what you did has a lot of people pointing at that. Would you like to see that? More people going to city council meetings, particularly ones that are hostile and have those MAGA influences, more people who, as you said, have the privilege to do so, whether through status or skin color, whatever it is, but people who are able to get arrested. Have we reached that point where we really have to lay our bodies down in order to try to stop this?
I think we have. I mean, because I look back at the civil rights movement, right? And like that was, there were people in the streets. Like there were people, literally going out there, putting their bodies on the line and willing to face hostile police forces to say, no, this is not okay. Segregation is not okay. Everyone deserves a chance to live. And what the Trump administration is doing to trans people right now is absolutely horrendous. And everyone should be up in arms about it, because first they come for the trans people, eventually they're going to come for you. And so what I really would like to see, though, is, as I said, people who look like me, who have the privilege of being a white man, especially, let's not get it twisted. White people are the reason why Trump is in office. Like, he's our problem. We need to fix our problem. Like we shit the bed, now it's time to clean it up. And it's not fair to expect people who are vulnerable and oppressed to always take the lead on these issues because they're the ones being affected. We have to recognize our own culpability in this and take steps to make amends for that.
Mm. Do you believe in the expression that courage is contagious?
I certainly would like to. Time will tell if it is true.
Mm. And one more question, because I think this one's very important. Like, where does your courage come from?
So for me, it's actually purely selfish. I want to live in a world where I can do what I want. And what I want to do is just sit at home and play video games and be with my family. Like, I was actually yelling this on the council floor, like when the officers were on top of me. I was like, I do not want to be here. Like this is not how I anticipated spending my Tuesday night. But I had to be there, because if I don't speak out for other people when they're being oppressed, like I said, eventually they're going to come for me. So the only way I can live in a world where I'm free to do what I want to do is to make sure everyone else has that same opportunity. And that means fighting for them when they don't have the chance to do so.
Mm. And I want to give you the floor to end this, man. I mean, anything else you would like to say to listeners, to viewers, to people who were inspired by what you said? I told you before that a friend of mine told me that it felt like someone had punched a hole in a window and they could finally breathe some fresh air when they saw you did what you did. It's just meaning a lot to a lot of people, Chris. And I want to just give you the chance to speak to that and reflect on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think what I would say is that I want us as American citizens to come together as American citizens. I want us to raise our voices and state what this country is founded upon. And that is no kings, no tyrants, not now, not ever. And regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of what you believe, the budget should be or our foreign affairs, at our core, we are Americans, and we have to protect the dream of America. And if Donald Trump is allowed to become a king, then America is dead.
Mm. Yeah, it's certainly at this point is feeling like an American nightmare more than an American dream. That's for sure. And as you said, the next step after nightmare is actually cold and dead on the ground.
Yep.
Chris Kluwe, man, I know how in demand you are right now. Thanks so much for taking the time so we can talk and people can hear from you why you took that extraordinary action. And my hope, both frankly, in my life as well as with other people, I can do something similar in the days ahead.
Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you taking the time and giving me the platform. I think it is really important, and it transcends anything else. We have to save America.
Absolutely. Hey, for everybody out there listening, Chris, how can people follow what you're doing right now? Further exploits. What's the best way?
I am at Chris Warcraft on Blue Sky because Twitter is a Nazi bar and you should not be on Twitter. And that's pretty much the only spot I'm at. So if you want to talk with me, come check out Chris Warcraft at Blue Sky. Oh, and also if you feel like you really got to help out the local situation, protecthb.org is the group trying to help save the library. So like, don't feel like you got to throw a few bucks their way, but if you got extra cash, I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't say no.
protecthb.org. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
Excellent. And just one last point of clarification, because you said it earlier, in case we have folks who don't remember it, your historic essay on what was then Deadspin that stood hardcore for LGBTQ rights at a time where they really needed to be stood for. Tell us again the name of that so people can Google it.
Absolutely. They won't magically turn you into a lustful cock monster.
Yes, indeed. They won't magically turn you into a lustful cock monster. Well, the sirens are coming. We better end this, and I can send it off. Chris Kluwe, thank you so much for joining us.
Yep, thanks for having me.